Okay, welcome to another Expedient webinar. Today we'll be talking about how to lay the groundwork for a successful transformation. Let's dig right in. So today we're going to talk about a number of things, cloud history being the first, to set the context for this conversation. Where have we come from and where are we at today? And then we're going to talk about today's complexity, which is kind of where we're at today. How to target transformation, working around the challenges that we're going to raise in this conversation. And as part of that, we're going to talk about it's an and conversation, how to use multiple clouds to make things happen in a powerful way. And then the power of data, how to gather the right data so that you can make decisions about what clouds, where you're using, what workloads you have, where they're going. So before I get started, a little house cleaning work. Enter all questions in the Q&A. It's right down here. If you hover over the screen, you'll see it, Q&A. Any questions go in there. And know that this session is being recorded and you'll get a recording after the fact. It's also for those people who registered who couldn't join. And if you're now watching after the fact, welcome aboard. So let's dig right in. Pick a number. How old do you think cloud is? So lots of answers to that question. But if you use EC2 as the starting place, it's 16 years old today. So 2006 was EC2 came out. And if you look at that time frame, a number of other things sprung onto the market at the same time. But what's amazing about this is that, well, cloud just got its license. And, truthfully, if you look at things from that perspective, it might answer this next question. What have we learned? Why is it that it's 16 years and we're only 30% of the way fully into hyperscale, 70% still outside of that? I would argue that the infrastructure itself is lacking capabilities. The same way, if you were to refer back to my analogy of the license, would you want a teenager driving your infrastructure right now? Now, that's not to say that cloud isn't mature. It surely is. And it's powerful, no question. But there's a difference between being born in the cloud and having a lot of applications. Let's call it decades of mature applications. And what do I mean by mature? I mean, there's people, process, and tools that have been evolving over time so that your security and operations backups, your DR and high availability, and just support and administration of all those systems is pretty strong. And quite naturally, because things do evolve over time, they do get better, sometimes slower than other times. But in this case, there's a lot of good stuff. So born in the cloud, great. I can build all those things from the ground up. But if I have systems that have all that baked around it, and I'm moving them to the cloud, it's literally a different story. And it takes a lot. People talk about refactoring applications to move to the cloud. Guess what? If I'm going to lift and shift workloads without changing anything to the cloud, everything that I'm talking about relative to infrastructure operations has to also be refactored. So I need different processes. That takes time. I need different tools, not just the systems that I'm getting, because that's supposed to make life easier. I can just, drum up new resources. But I need the tools to operate those things. And there's lots of them. When I name backups, DR, high availability, that administrative tools, I'm touching the surface of all the things that need to be rebaked over here with the processes wrapped around them and the people to run them. That's going to be a big drag on things. In fact, that's the next part of our conversation. So the current state of transformation is really having a lot of challenges because all these things that I'm talking about relative to moving things from where they are, decades of experience, onto an entirely new platform, not easy. And people talk about, yeah, I can just pick up my VMs, my virtual machines, even some of my bare metal machines, transfer them over into virtual, get them up there, et cetera. All you're getting out of the cloud, the hyperscale cloud at that point, is that commodity of compute storage network, and it sounds like a lot, but when you compare it to all the things that infrastructure teams have to do to get it over there, to harden it, to support it, to administer it, to make it perform better, to secure it, this takes a lot. So what kinds of things are in the way? Of course, technical debt. And this is where I'm going to point to throughout this conversation, that this is a major challenge. It's us trying to move workloads that have a good place, that are running, onto an entirely new platform without getting real business value out of it. There's not something that you can point to that says, here's the value. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. It also means that I have two platforms, because it's not a magic wand and I move things over there. I did interviews with CIOs last year. I talked to over 60 folks in the industry. I talked to a few people in the industry, but mostly people on the front lines. And this one conversation I had really makes the point. The CIO I talked to, for a very large organization, said, Jim, 3.5 years ago, we said we were going to be 90% of the way in the cloud in 2 years. I've stopped the project. We're at 35%. It's far more complex than we thought. There's challenges with resources. There are challenges with costs. It's something that we're just, we've slowed down. We're trying to figure things out before we accelerate again. That's the challenge people are facing. And when you have those two platforms, the thing I was going to point to with that story is that now I have to have everything running in two places. And that gentleman has an infrastructure team. You'll notice that in these kinds of moves, they typically don't double the size of the infrastructure team. On an application project, to refactor an application, I'll hire a whole new group of people or add some people to the development team, bring in consultants. They throw a lot of money at that. Infrastructure, not the same. So do more with less arena. So you don't have a centralized security. You don't have centralized monitoring and support. Your cost control goes through the roof. And the talent pressures are real today. I do security chats, kind of roundtable chats in steakhouses. We get a room in the back, and it's a lot of fun because we have C-level folks in the room, architects, et cetera, CISOs, talking about their problems. We spent 25 minutes one evening on this topic alone. Everybody's feeling this. There's just no question. Cloud platform proliferation, finally, remember that stack, right? Here's hyperscale, here's, on-prem or existing systems. Guess what? That's one tower. I've got AWS, and then I have Google, and then I have Azure. They operate differently. All those infrastructure functions need to be addressed most of the time, slightly different for each. So proliferation, this problem is horrible. So this is how we like to sum it up, right? This complexity of going to the cloud, especially in the case of lift and shift of existing workloads without any refactoring, is like getting a bag of Legos with no instructions. And what do you want to build? Well, you want the Lamborghini or the Ferrari. Like, you want a car that's got a lot of power, that can accelerate fast, that can handle changes in the road, hugging it and moving quickly, right? This is what we want with the cloud. Right. But no instructions in that bag. Well, even if I had this picture of the bottom of the car, the only thing it gives me is some idea of what might be in the first layer, nothing else beyond that. That's going to create some real challenges. So instead of just talking about this problem, let's use some numbers. So let's refer to this study that Google did, that Forbes published. And I think this says exactly what I've been saying, but with stronger language. Technical debt is both silent and far-reaching in its impact. And silent because people aren't paying attention to it. Why not? Well, actually, I was going to tell you, but I'm going to wait for that slide. Let me give you some information about what this means. So this study done by Google went through a large number of organizations and compared people who were already in the cloud working away with those folks who have that combination of, and when I say already in the cloud, I mean built in the cloud, to those folks who have a large existing set of systems and are trying to migrate over there, right? It never goes overnight. So there's always this complexity of moving those things over. And I said it was 1.6 times less productive. In other words, born in the cloud, not born in the cloud. These folks are 1.6 times less productive than these folks over here. Let's look at some numbers. What does that really mean? I'm just going to start with the 10 people. Well, let's go to 100. At 100 people, that means 37.5 people less productive. It's almost 40%. I'm not talking hours here. I'm talking FTEs. We all know that payroll is a significant part of our cost factor in any organization, and this is no exception. That's real. That's big. And what that means is whether I have 10 people, 100 people, 500 or thousands, this kind of move is going to cause some real challenges. And we've seen this, and the analysts are writing it in, the rags are writing about it. It is a real problem. So if I look at this in an analogy form, what I would say is basically the way people are doing their migrations is burning cash. It would be fun if you could light a cigar with a $100 bill. One, you'd have to like smoking cigars, and two, you'd have to not really care about money. But the thing is here, it's like having a interest-only loan, and the principal is a technical debt that never gets paid down. I think it's a great analogy, but I'm going to take it one step further. I think it costs more than that. I think it actually costs the business more than that, because it literally slows down transformation. When your infrastructure folks, cloud is supposed to be this new DevOps model where things are automated such that they can get their resources right away. If the infrastructure team has to handle that migration, the existing systems that are still down there, and figuring out how to handle them once they're up there, they're not going to be working on the things that are going to give you that cloud value. So I say it's even worse than this. But let's take a look. Let's back up for a second and let's talk about what transformation is really. Why are we here? And this is, back in 2011, Capgemini and MIT came up with this definition. There's lots of definitions, but this does it justice, I think. It's the use of technology, and get this, to radically improve performance or the reach of business. Radically is the key here. We're not talking about, optimizing our storage, our IOPS, or, getting better compute, our refreshes that help us out a little bit, or a better disaster recovery software package. We're talking about something that helps the business move forward. So what does that mean then? Why are we here? Why are we not achieving transformation? And I'm going to talk about that by splitting cloud adoption into two categories, because it's easy to do and it makes sense. I hope you agree, but they look like this. People are doing cloud adoption in two ways. Some are just focusing on application modernization. They're picking selected applications that they know they can transform using cloud development resources to do something great for the business. And then there's infrastructure, and people are doing migration. It's technology for technology's sake. The problem with that is that no matter what you do in this journey, and everybody should agree on this, it must show measurable business value. I mean, since when can you be an infrastructure guy and say, hey, I think we just spend this money to move over there? Is it running fine where it is? No CFO should sign the check. But the euphoria of cloud and its marketing and the idea that of what it can do, which is real, has kind of just drifted downstream into the infrastructure arena, and people have forgotten to reassess these two areas. Speaking in terms of the application arena, it is inherently aligned with business outcomes. So on that side of the field, great idea. We're going to have to say that this is the application we're going to improve. These are the customers or the service individuals or the vendor partners that are going to see the improvement, and here's the net value of that to the organization. That's how applications are developed. On the infrastructure side, not so much. If I'm, for example, transforming my backups, how's that going to look? Where do I measure that? Well, business value. Well, you can get your files back when you need it. I mean, it's kind of a must-have. That's why everybody looks at this thing as like a necessary evil. Why do I have to spend so much on my backups? Well, I'm sorry. If you can find a less expensive solution that's going to do what we need it to, we'll put it in. But this is the conversation we have from the infrastructure side, not the application side, where they're creatively dreaming up what they're going to do next for the business with all the new technology tools that they have. So the mantra of do more with less is getting crushed. In fact, it's do more with more. This thing is just out the window. And we've got numbers for that too. So if we go and look at a Flexera report that they did, They asked people to self-assess, what's your cloud spend looking like? Well, 32% said we're wasting money, wasting it. Not a good term to use in any organization relative to your infrastructure. You want to optimize there always as much as you can. And a recent conversation I had with some IDC analysts, they're reporting on this, is that this isn't just during the initial part of your migration. This is year over year. People are writing checks, and get this number because it's very similar to the one on the screen, but it's different. They're spending 30% more. It's not 32% saying wasted money. They're spending 30% more year over year, year over year, writing the check. Why? Well, it's the euphoria. The organizations at the top level believe, and rightly so, that cloud is their ultimate destination. But I don't think they're asking the questions about what it means to the infrastructure. Who do they talk to? They talk to the applications folk. Anybody ask the infrastructure guys? No, they told those guys, just get there. Okay, we'll tell you what it's going to cost. Great. Is it okay if I run 30% in the red for a while? Nobody wants that. And undetected mistakes are often causing these rising costs. I know one organization who estimated costs when they got there, they were 8 times what they estimated once they got there. And this isn't like an only story. There's glitches that are not found in the use of the systems that they are purchasing. Scalable and agile, great, but all kinds of surprises pop up. And at the end of the day, this is what's causing things to skyrocket. So let's talk about this. Transformation without an outcome focus. In other words, not taking things and just doing things for technology's sake. You can't really transform things on technology alone. There should always be that tie to business outcomes. And that's what we're seeing. This is a great quote by Jarrett Lane. I just love the way he said it. So without any focus on business outcomes, this idea of migration is crashing into the wall. And people aren't even recognizing it because, again, it's the euphoria of cloud. Well, we still have to do this. It doesn't have to be that way. And it takes focus off of being able to do more work over on this side where I want to get that digital transformation applied. Well, I can't apply that if my infrastructure team is so overwhelmed. That's naturally going to impede what we're going to do. So the bad news, if you're on a migration, it doesn't look good. This is another report put out by Infotech Research Group. They did 2 years in a row, 2020 and 2021. And so the numbers were consistent. In fact, at the transformation level, when people were self-assessing what's your level of maturity in IT, it dropped in half. Now, granted, it's a small number, so not a big deal, but there's not much up there in transformative. Even in expanding, it's only at 12%. Optimized, which is your middle of the road, not transformation, is at 37%, and the rest, 48%, rated at low maturity. If we're rating this against transformation, which is what we're talking about today, add that 37% in the middle to that number, because that's not transformative. It's not even expansive. So we really have 85%. It looks actually a lot like the number I showed you at the beginning of this, the first slide. It's not looking good. So the bad news is this: cloud migration does not equal cloud modernization. There's a way to go about applying modernization as a cloud operating model without using a destination or the technology alone as your purpose for doing something. And again, we have numbers to back that up. So this is another report by the IDC, and they compared across a large number of organizations, those few people that were at the top transforming things to those people that were at the bottom, not getting anywhere. And revenue, which is kind of important, 119% better performance. Faster time to market, 107%. Why faster time to market? Because when your infrastructure is functioning well, when your workloads are in the right place and your cloud operating model is functioning across your platforms, that means that your digital transformation is going to get more focus. 63% more operational efficiency. This is good stuff. So let's switch gears a little bit and then talk about this in a way we can kind of see it. So what am I talking about? On the infrastructure side, as I've been saying, there's a lot of things that go into the background of what we're doing. When we go to cloud, the real value is that scalability and that agile behavior for applications and for application development. So containers as a service, functions as a service, the DB as a service, things like AI and ML that I can plug into. I've developed some good applications. I'm collecting some data. I'd like some ML to come out of this. I pipe that down to an ML service and get my information out. That's really great. And I'm not going to go into depth on it, but as a guy who worked in applications years ago, I can tell you, this is good stuff. It's where things should go. But now let's talk about it from an infrastructure perspective. Is that really the right place for my existing workloads? Is that optimal for my existing applications? No, it's not. And for a number of reasons. Am I going to get the kind of white glove service that I would get with other cloud providers? Expedient being one of them. No, you're not. You're on your own. So your team has more work to do. We provide assessments, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We simplify the complexity. As an example, we moved 12,000 systems for a very large organization in 4.5 months. If you want to hear the details of that, DM me or reach out to your sales rep. Migration simplified then. And we also have something that's unique. We have multi-cloud tools. You're not going to get this out of the hyperscalers who want you to focus their tools on their stuff. We're providing you things in the way of networking, security, cost optimization, administration that work not only across our cloud, but across the hyperscalers and across your on-prem systems as well. A central place to say, hey, I need a new system. How much does it cost in these platforms? And so here's where I want to put it. And boom, off it goes. This is the kind of stuff that you're going to have. Why not dig into it sooner rather than later? And finally, of course, the as a service things. So DR or backups or desktops, sure, you can get those in the cloud, but you still have to run everything. We have more than enough to do as organizations in this day and age of IT to try and get some of those things off of our plate, right? If somebody can provide the infrastructure, cloud infrastructure for backups, cloud infrastructure for VDI, cloud infrastructure for DR as a service where it's all taken care of, we run it, bring your gold image, we'll put it on our system and off you go, ready to start testing with your first users day one. That's valuable. That's time savings, reduces complexity, less risk because of the security we can put around it with you and for you. So let's boil it down to something simple. I'm on-prem and this is what I have. I want to get to the cloud. Why? Because I have no agility, I have large CapEx, and I'm manually driven. I want to automate. That means a lot these days, but I have an existing skill set, and that's important. I need to understand that in today's market, you need to understand how to manage that because you're not going to find the skills that you need. And I also have apps that aren't ready for refactoring. So lifting and shifting over there is going to cause some problems. And I'm going to need new skill sets. I'm going to need app refactoring, or it's going to come over as is, and it's going to be a bit of a boat anchor. But I do get agile and elastic, yay, monthly ops specs, and API driven. How else am I going to automate the you-know-what out of this stuff? So Expedience Enterprise Cloud is something that pulls that together. So we can move your applications up to an environment, a VMware vCloud that they're familiar with. So it's easy for them to work inside of. We can offer them other services around that to free them up for the challenges that your organization faces in achieving true transformation. We're agile and elastic. We have a monthly OpEx, and we are API driven. So you can automate the you-know-what out of this. That's good. So how about as a service instead of self-service? That's what we're talking about. And I say the easy button, honestly, it is a whole lot easier than the way most people are doing it, lifting and shifting from a virtual platform to a hyperscale platform. It's not as easy as they make it sound. So as a service means faster migrations, no app refactoring. The lift and shift is more like a lift and move. Like it's easy, cost savings. You have a pool of resources, it's consumption-based, and because it's simpler, you're saving money in the operation of migration and the operations of support afterwards. You can leverage your existing staff and even reskill them for the future. We have an organization we worked with in doing this kind of a cloud migration. They retrained 50 people for cloud, and those people are excited to be there. And then the cloud on-ramp. So again, all the things that you want, plus we are connected low latency into the hyperscalers. And because we have data centers across the country, you can pick your location and you can even put some of your bare metal stuff next to it. So you're next to the Expedient cloud, you're low latency to the hyperscale cloud, you'll stay on your journey. We're not saying this as opposed to that, we're saying this and that. Cloud is very important. There's better ways to get it done. So how do you go about doing that? Make informed decisions. So the assessments that we're talking about means you want to make a clear case, because when it comes down from the boardroom to the infrastructure, get to the cloud as fast as you can. This isn't about making a clear case to prove the budget. This is about making a clear case as to why you need to slow down and why it won't have an impact on the digital transformation story. So having a good understanding of the virtual inventory, of the host inventory, and the support services required to do that is really important. But because it's the platform, Hyperscale, that you're moving to with a few applications that belong there now, you want to understand the relationship between the different parts. So you want to look at that IT landscape and understand who's talking to who, when, why, and how much. So what's happening there? Determine the dependencies, understand that. And this helps you avoid roadblocks in this journey as you select what goes where. You're not going to run into any hiccups with egress fees or other things like that. You do a proper evaluation of this. And then finally, being able to compare across clouds. So line up your workloads with where they belong, where you're going to get the most value at that level of cost. That can be shown. See the costs on a per VM basis and account for the service value. You've got to do things this way. So these are no charge assessments that we do for cloud optimization, for ransomware, and for VDI sizing. And when I say no charge, I don't mean you can call us up and we're going to run down there and put in some tools and look at things. No, we're just as focused on the business outcomes as you are. So we want to sit down and make sure we understand what are you trying to accomplish. And if you're willing to have that conversation with us, we're certainly willing to spend the time with you because we know we can add value. We can bring you some actionable intelligence through the information that we bring you so that you can make some informed decisions. So my name is Jim Gehring. Again, I'm a digital strategist / evangelist for Expedient. And some of the ways that we work with folks, myself and others, to get you on that journey to transformation, whether you're already on that cloud journey or you're thinking about it, because most people are really already on it. Briefing sessions, so we can do something like this, but privately, where I'm not just talking, we're having a conversation at this level, and we can dig in. You can ask all the questions you want. Workshops where we bring in some of our thought leaders and your thought leaders. We do a little prep work so we understand what you're trying to get out of it, and we facilitate a conversation between us. Again, open collaboration. Or let's dig in. Let's do an assessment. Let's get some good tactical information we can use to have that kind of workshop conversation. And of course, like most organizations, we love to get to know you by doing things that make it easy. Coffee, lunch, golf, free beer as a service, skeeting, fishing, skeet shooting. Thanks. I actually love to do that. But these are different ways that we will engage, and our salespeople will engage with you. So let us know where we can start in on this journey. We'd be happy to have a conversation about it. Thank you very much for spending the time with us today. We really appreciate it. And of course, again, if you have any questions, just DM me on LinkedIn. Thanks again, and have a great day.